If you're losing faith in humanity, talk to a criminal. Today, I want to talk about two things. I want to first talk about this criminological theory that really just helped me understand humanity. And then I want to talk about some experiences that I had working directly with people who've been accused of committing crimes and what that taught me about humanity. So, when I was in college, I studied criminal justice, and part of that coursework was a criminology class. And we learned about this theory called strain theory. And I wish I could tell you that I could remember all of the ins and outs of that theory. And I don't. It's much more in depth than what I'm going to explain here. But I want to explain some pretty basic aspects of what I've learned because of how it informed what I understood later on. So, I'm going to start off by showing you a little grid here. And we have four different boxes, and you can see labels outside of those boxes. So let's talk about these boxes. So first, you see that there is this box that is labeled traditional ends and traditional means. And this is a person who has the goal of having traditional ends, which in America we often consider the American dream or being able to make money and be stable in terms of finances. And they do so by the traditional means, which here in the United States is work hard, lots of grit. Okay. So then we have this next box where somebody pursues untraditional ends, but they pursue it through traditional means. I was taught that this could be a highly religious person, right? Somebody whose end goal is to meet religious ends, whether that's helping the poor, whether that's, you know, preaching about Jesus Christ, things like that. And they pursue that by those traditional means, which is working hard, grit, right? The next box we have untraditional means and traditional ends. And I think that's what you're going to see when you think about a criminal. So has, uh, the person wants to pursue the traditional American dream. They want to pursue a financial security, and they do so by untraditional means. That is like crime. They steal, they cheat, things like that to be able to get what they need and to survive and get this traditional American dream. And finally, there are individuals who pursue untraditional means and untraditional ends. And that was described to me, particularly people who struggle with addiction. So, people who want to pursue highs, and it's people who want to escape from life. And they do so by first seeking these untraditional ends, which would be like drugs, and doing so by untraditional means, which is often crime. They do so by illegally buying and selling substances. No, but it's not necessary that anybody lives in these untraditional squares, but according to strain theory, because of different stressors in your life, because of things that happen to you, you may start to go to these squares, even if you would have normally fallen within the more traditional sphere that does not involve crime. And so that's what strain theory is all about. What is the strain, the stressors that are being put on individuals that move them from these traditional routes to these untraditional routes? What I love about this theory is it just gave me so much insight on why people get frustrated with the system. And it's often because they are not getting what they see other people getting using the same methods, right? So they see people using traditional means to get traditional ends, and they are not achieving that. And so they make a choice to move to untraditional means because it seems like the only way that they can survive. And I think in America, we like to think that the traditional means and the traditional ends works for everyone. It's a flawless formula. If in reality it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. There are people who work extremely hard and have a hard time getting any further. And that could be for many reasons. Like I said, that's the whole point of strain theory. There could be many stressors that cause that, and there could be many disabilities that are hindering that person from moving. But if we don't recognize that, we don't recognize that some individuals have barriers that make living a traditional lifestyle extremely difficult, then it's hard to accept those people as not intentionally trying to harm society or live in the fringes of society. Early in my legal career, I worked as a public defender, and I spent my time representing people who had been accused of crimes. And I spent a lot of time with them, both in my office, in jails, just talking to them, hearing their stories. Mostly, I worked with individuals who had drug problems. So, whether they were there and incarcerated because they had had possession of some substance, or if they had shoplifted because they needed money, because they didn't have work to be able to support their habit as well as the rest of their lives. I remember talking to these individuals, and so many of them wish they could just live a traditional lifestyle. They really desired to have a traditional lifestyle where they're pursuing traditional means. They talked about wanting to be able to have a job, to be able to support their families, to not be getting arrested, to not worry if they're going to be stopped by the police, to not have to worry about those kind of things. And they had just not been able to succeed. They had experienced severe traumas. Many of them had been abused both as children, many had been abused as adults. They wanted peace. I think it's important to remember these people didn't want to be millionaires, but for them, the American dream was much more simple than that. They just wanted safety and security in their homes. And I saw that. I saw how desperately they called for me to defend them so that they could get out and try to do better than they did before. I remember talking to a gentleman who had been through the criminal justice system many times, and he was a tribal member. And something that he said always sticks with me because he told me how the police targeted members of his tribe, how they were constantly the ones who were being arrested, how they didn't get fair sentences when they went through the justice system. And I told him that I knew that. I knew that it wasn't fair. And I was glad to be able to represent him and give him the best outcome. And I was sorry that the system was broken for him. And he looked at me, and I knew no one had ever told him that before. No one in any power with any authority had told him that, yes, the system is broken and you're in a broken system, but we have to work in this system. It's the only way to survive. And it built a lot of trust with him. But I also realized that we have an important role for those that we're working with, for those who are struggling, to make sure that we tell them that we know that there are some barriers for a lot of people, and they are unfair and they are not right. But that doesn't mean that they can't get around them with some help. And it doesn't mean that we can't try to break down those barriers and that we can't try to fix the system. Because when people are treated unfairly by the system and they feel like they can't work within the system, they will try to rip off the system. They will commit crime because they're going to feel like they need recompense for the things that are not right, whether it's racism, whether it is sexism, whether it is just targeting people because we don't like how they are, that they're living on our streets without a home, that we don't like that they're using drugs, that we don't like these characteristics that they have developed to survive. As I've had these experiences, the thing is that criminals are just like us. I often think about, what if I was born in a different life? What if I had different parents? What if I had different circumstances in my youth? I'm just a few steps away from not being a lawyer and being behind bars if just things had turned out differently. I was born into this. I didn't work hard to not be a criminal. I was given a life that did not push me towards criminalism. And I think that that is so important for us to understand, that these are people who have been in unfortunate circumstances. I recognize as I state this that someone who might be watching this has been harmed in terrible ways by somebody who committed crime. And I don't want to dismiss that, because there are dangerous people, and we have to figure out a way to separate them. They can't be around people if they're going to be dangerous. But my experience, I worked with a lot of people, and of the hundreds of people I worked with, only 3 people that I think were truly dangerous. I thought all the rest could easily have resources to be successful and to not commit crime in the future that would harm other people. Because I want you to remember a lot of these criminals are victims. They're victims too. And they have been wronged. And they do try to be good again and again and again. All this to say that I think that we need to give criminals grace, not because they're innocent, but because they're human. I mean, their patterns are so predictable that we can create criminological theories behind behavior that continually happens. And I just always try to remember that perhaps in another body I would have been a criminal too. And so I hope you like this video. I know this is a little heavier, but I really think this is an important issue right now when we're thinking about the people around us. I think we need to give more humanity to the people around us. And I want, if you're interested to continue to talk about human nature and how we can learn to love and respect people who are different from us. And so if you like this video, give me a like so I know to make more content like this. And I will talk to you soon.